both for engineering as well as business. And today I do a few different things. I have moved away from working in a company. I started my own photography business some years back, and now I lead that myself with my team. And I also do some contract work for a nonprofit, again, in the space of project management. And then as far as my other time goes, I do help out with education board here as well in the United States, specifically for the Southeast region. So it's more of a regional role I have instead of a national role. And Sabrine, pass it over to you.
Thank you, Danish. So I I don't know if people know me, but I was born in Karachi, Pakistan. I did my schooling, my undergrad, my grad, like my bachelor's and my master's from Pakistan. I did my speech language therapy, like 4 years of undergrad degree from Karachi. Then I did my master's from Karachi from Ziauddin University. And then I moved to the US to do my PhD. I did my studies there and then I was working there for a few years and then I moved to the US. So while I was working or while I was doing my PhD, I was also working on getting my certification because you know that PhD is considered like a medical degree. So you have to have a license, like a national license and also a regional license. So I was working on getting that. And what, like, in order to get the certification, I worked at schools, at the university as a PhD student. I'm also a course instructor at the University of Oregon, where I'm doing my PhD. And I've also worked some of the private practices here in the US. So that is my background. So I would say that I have a good experience studying and working in Pakistan. And now I have some of the experience of studying and working in the US. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrine. I think I, I'm glad that you guys have volunteered to do this session because you've gone through the whole journey. And thank you very much for being with us. Over to you, Danish. Start with the presentation slides, please.
Yep, definitely. And Imran, right now, has anybody received that guide that we have created in that folder? Do they have that link right now?
Not yet, not yet. We'll be
Not yet.
sharing this
Okay.
at the end of the session.
Okay, perfect. So pretty much everybody, again, thank y'all for taking the time out to also join this. I know it's helpful for YouTube, but you are taking that time out for us, so thank you so much. Like Imran mentioned, please put your questions in the chat. We have some slides ready to discuss a few topics with y'all, but we would definitely want to answer your questions as best as we can. So we'll go through the deck. We'll also share this deck as well with Imran so he can send that out. And we also have a specific resource guide after that can hopefully help y'all with answering more questions as well. So just this is a quick agenda we have for today. We're going to go through a few slides with y'all, and any questions y'all have, just let us know. So we did introductions, but the main topic why we're here to talk is, why are we trying to discuss studying in the US? To provide some context, both Sabrina and I have been working with the Education Board here for a few years, and we know a lot of families, a lot of students come here from all the countries that we have Jamaati members in, India, Pakistan, Tajikistan, a lot of different companies, and they come here for their college education. And, we decided that, we have a lot of families who come here. They usually are looking for information, and how best can we provide that information to them? And that's how we got connected with Imran to do this webinar. And again, the slide here kind of discusses a few reasons why you might want to come to the US for your college education. Now, obviously, there are schools as well as in Pakistan. You might want to go to other countries as well. Specifically, why the US? And these are some good reasons as to why you might want to come here for your college education. Obviously, it's high quality. A lot of students move here because we have a lot of different schools here, and they cater to a lot of different fields. So you might be interested in studying something, and more often than not, we have a university that specializes in that field for you, and not just one. We have many for that. Of course, we have the different range of programs that you can go through and apply for both undergrad degree, which is your bachelor's degree, or your master's degree, or like Sabrine, a PhD. Again, some other reasons is, career advancement if you're looking to come into working in the US at some point too, or if you want to get your degree, go back to Pakistan. We have students who do both. And you have a lot of opportunities here when it comes to the different curriculum that we have through our different universities. So we have research, we have working opportunities. You have a vast variety of the different fields that you can go into and study. Now, when we talk about the university specifically, this is a very, very high level for that, but they get bucketed into two. You have either the public university or private university. And with these universities, there are different variations. You have differences in funding and cost, the size, how the admission process works, which overall is fairly the same, but then for some private universities, you might have to take additional steps to get admitted. And then, of course, where the campus is. So in general, the public universities are government funded, and the private will be based on tuition and donations. So across the US, we have many that go into both buckets, and they have different costs associated with them as well. Now we're talking about international fees as well, and students coming from international countries. So later on in the deck, I will share a website, and that kind of gives you an example of how you can check how these fees look for different universities. As far as the programs go, like I mentioned, you have undergrad and grad programs. Now, usually once you finish up your schooling in Pakistan, what we call here high school, which is 12th grade, the next step is to apply for university and college and get into one of those and stay there for about 4 to 5 years. And that's called the undergraduate degree, the bachelor's degree. Now, this is very foundational knowledge. You can apply for a specific major, which is a specific field. So for example, my field was business administration, and then I did a concentration in information technology, so IT. With majors, you can have multi-majors that you can take and get a degree in. And then if you want to go into more of the graduate program, like even Sabrine's doing for her PhD, that comes after you have finished your undergrad. So either a master's program or a PhD program would come after that point. And again, when it comes to just the structure of these, the undergrad studies are a little more general. They're foundational in nature, but they give you a good idea of the specific field you've chosen. That could be engineering, computer science, medical, different science degrees we have, liberal arts, law, whatever you might be interested in. There is always something here for you. And then, of course, with grad degrees, there's a lot more nuance. There are many more things happening at that point. I'll pause here for a second because I know we have 2, 3 questions here. Imran, do you want to moderate those, or should I just answer them?
Danish, can I answer? I think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good thing because somebody asked about the CGPA. Maybe one of you can take that. And then they say, do community colleges under public institutions, how does it differ from a university, and more on cost living? And I think we're going to cover cost living and other academics later, but you can talk about that specific question on community colleges and public institutions.
Yes, Ari, you wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to answer the majors and the CGPA question, unless you want to take a tap on that, Danish.
No, go ahead.
So for the CGPA, it completely depends on the university and the requirement. We will go on what university you can apply to and what are the things you want to consider when you're applying for the university. So the thing is that every university will have a different requirement, and also every program has a different requirement. One example is, like, if you're going to a medical degree, like if you're going for a speech therapy, मेरी आइल्स की रिक्वायरमेंट थी 7.5, लेकिन हो सकता है अगर आप किसी दूसरे प्रोग्राम में अप्लाई करें तो उनकी आइल्स की रिक्वायरमेंट कुछ और होगी या उनकी CGPA रिक्वायरमेंट कुछ और होगी. So it also depends on the program you're applying, and also depends on the university you're applying. Some universities are highly competitive. However, some universities are not very competitive with the grades, but they look at other co-curricular activities or some others. So everyone has a different criteria. So CGPA will definitely vary. The main thing that you have to do when you are looking for them is look at the website कि उनकी requirement क्या है और आप किस तरीके से मतलब वो क्या चाहते हैं आपसे. The second is, I think you can take 2 measures. Sometimes you also take a minor and a major, or sometimes you take 2 measures, but I think Danish can correct me. Danish?
Yeah. So depending, and just to quickly answer too, so it says how many majors can we take, right? So every field or industry, you have many, many majors in that field or industry. So for example, I went to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has a College of Business at the university. In that college, there are about 10 different majors you can take when it comes to business. Okay, so that's one program. I took one specific major. Now, if I had chosen, I could have taken that major and I could have taken another major. The main thing is it depends on how much workload you can handle, also what you want to do. So a major is a larger degree that gives you your 4-year degree and you get the diploma at the end. A minor that Sabrine mentioned is a smaller degree. You can add as many minors as you want to your major, and you can get, depending on your workload, it may take you a little bit longer. And again, we can talk more about that. That will come down to more specifics on what you're interested in studying. Now, to answer the other question about community college, it is under public university. There are many community colleges that we do have in all the different states here. Again, because we're in Georgia, I can always answer those specific ones. We have 3 main ones that a lot of students go to. But yes, they come under public and they do differ from different for 4-year schools because some community colleges are only 2 years, meaning you can only get an associate degree. So when we consider getting the degree, we want to consider getting a bachelor's, a 4-year degree instead of the associate degree, unless that's the only option you might have.
Correct. So I think, Danish, because we're having many questions and this will
Yes.
continue, I would say
Okay.
that many of your questions will be answered during the session when we get these are like very comprehensive slides. So, and the residual questions we'll ask you at the end. So let's
Yes.
just go ahead with the deck, please.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
So there was a question about this in terms of college ranking, also how to figure out which colleges should we be looking at in the first place, right? So the one thing that we've done here in the US, we have taken a guide, and again, the link will be shared, so you will have this. And every year, the education board here in the US crafts this guide to help students in understanding what schools out there that they could be applying to and what are some of the better schools out there as well. Now, like I said, this link will be shared so you can read through it yourself. But just to give you an idea of what it looks like, the ranking here, now the one thing I want to note, ranking is not the only thing when you want to look at a college, okay? This is to help guide your decision, but this is not the only factor in your decision when it comes to looking at a college. You want to look at the specific program that you're interested in and see if it's a good fit for you. Now, here you will see that, we have the top 50 schools, top 100 schools, top 200 schools based on this ranking. And there are specific notes here that you can, again, like I said, you can read through. But the point is one, identifying the different schools you might be interested in applying to, looking at their programs, and then obviously applying at that point. Now, the ranking list goes all the way down to, I believe, about 300. And this is something that we share with every student and every family here in the US also, and it gets updated every year. And there are next steps here as well that you can read through and see, okay, how best can I figure out the schools, but also the research that you have to do on your own. For example, Sabrine had to do research when she was looking into PhD programs, that she had to look at different programs and see which one was the best one for her. When I was applying to my undergrad degree, I did the exact same thing. I applied to many schools. I looked at their programs and figured out which one was best for me. Okay, so this is one tool that we have, one resource that will be shared. And then let me come back here. Now, we talk about the application process, right? Obviously, we can talk all day long about I can do my research, I can try to figure out what school I might want to go to, but what does that application process look like? And we have a high level, slide here, and there are different pieces of it. But again, it will be specific to you, which schools you're applying to. But the first thing, like we mentioned, is choosing the program. If you are interested in one field, go look at that field at many different universities. So you're not only picking one, you can take a look, and all these websites are public. You can go type in the university name, and you can go through and look at their programs. Next step is to shortlist. We're not saying that you need to apply to 50 universities in the US, but you probably want to apply to about 10. That's a good number to have. Some schools, that with your grades, with your essays with your application that they might be a little bit easier to get into. You want to apply to a few of those. Then you want to apply to a few that maybe you're right at that level of their average scores. And those schools that you're still interested in, but you want to apply to a few of those. And then you want to apply to a few of those schools that may be out of your current application, your current grading. So for example, there are, the GPA requirements, there are testing requirements. Maybe some of those schools are a little bit higher and you're not meeting those requirements. And that's perfectly fine. Still apply. The one thing I always tell students is it is an average. That means people have those grades below and above that average that's listed on that website. So you want to shortlist your universities. And from there, look at the admission requirements. Each university has these requirements on their website. They will tell you exactly, especially if you're coming from a different country, they will tell you these are the steps you have to take to apply for our school. Now, I know there are some parts here because we're talking to international, so somebody outside of the US, there are some requirements when it comes to testing. I know, Sabrina, you wanted to mention a few things here as well, but we have some of these. And before I move on, Sabrina, go ahead.
Yeah, so from an international student perspective, as Danish said, that once you have looked at the universities that you want to apply, the first thing you want to look at is the admission requirement. When we talk about admission requirement, it means that what do they need? So there will be two things they need. First are your English proficiency scores. And there are several ways to do that. The first is the English proficiency scores, and the second is your like SAT scores, ACT scores, or GRE scores. You literally have to look at what do they need. Like some universities will take TOEFL, but some universities will want to take IELTS. So you have to see whether they'll accept TOEFL or whether they'll be okay with IELTS. Some universities would be okay taking Duolingo as well. कभी कभार यूनिवर्सिटी वेबसाइट पे अगर ये क्लियरली मेंशन नहीं है, universities are pretty good here in replying. You can definitely email the admissions office. Either you can email the admissions office or you can email your department जिस program में आप apply कर रहे हैं. You can pick that program, उनके देखें कि who is the person you can write your email to and ask that would you be okay considering our Duolingo scores in replacement of IELTS. So you have to see that what are the requirements they have. Secondly, you also have to see that whether they need ACT scores, whether they need SAT scores. If you are applying for masters, sometimes they also need GRE. We're going to talk about these scores later in the slides, but you have to look for it. Okay, what do they need? In addition to your scores, they would also need to see your course credit evaluation. Because we have not studied from the US, you will need an external agency to evaluate your course or evaluate your degrees and then send it to your university. In most cases, it is WES, but there are other World Education Service, but there are other agencies too that you can look up to. But this is very important. Now, there are two steps to this. Some universities will say कि हमको course credit evaluation at time of application ही चाहिए. Like when you are applying, please submit your course credit evaluation. Some universities will not take into consideration at time of admission, like आपको offer letter देते हुए, पर वो बाद में जब वो admissions office आपको letter देगा तो बोलेगा कि भाई हमें ये चाहिए. तो कोर्स जिसे यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है इंटरनेशनल ट्रांसक्रिप्ट रिक्वायरमेंट्स, होता यह है कि आपने जो भी पढ़ा हुआ है, आइदर यू हैव डन योर ओ लेवल्स, ए लेवल्स, आपने हाई स्कूल किया हुआ है, जो भी किया है, you have to get that evaluated from HEC. आप HEC को देंगे, HEC इसको स्टैम्प करेगा और वो स्टैम्प जो आपका फोटोकॉपी स्टैम्प होगा, वो स्टैम्प एक सील्ड एनवेलप में जाएगा और वो सील्ड एनवेलप जाएगा वेस को, विच इज वर्ल्ड एजुकेशन सर्विस. वर्ल्ड एजुकेशन सर्विस आपकी वो डिग्री इवेल्युएट करेगा एंड देन दे विल सेंड डायरेक्टली टू द यूनिवर्सिटी दैट यू आर अप्लाइंग टू. You will not send this course credit evaluation. The WES will directly send it to them. So that is a very important step. Still, in my experience, there are probably one or two universities which might not need it, but I would say 85% of the universities will require course credit evaluation because your studies are outside from the US. So be very mindful when you are applying. What does your university need? And secondly, let's say that if you're applying for the fall of 2025, you're applying for the summer of 2025, like completing these requirements might take a year. You have to prepare for IELTS, you have to take the IELTS test, and then you have to appear. तो 3 से 4 महीने उसमें चले जाएंगे. आपका वैसी जो है वो 6 weeks ले लेगा. HEC के अपॉइंटमेंट 1.5 महीने से पहले नहीं मिलते. So you have to prepare in advance, like at least a year or a year and a half. If you want to apply for 2026, start preparing from 2025. So you have to look at the requirements, see कौन-कौन सी requirements आप कर सकते हैं, and then start moving on fulfilling that requirements and then apply. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Sabrine. And based on everything she said also, right, there are many resources. Obviously, we are here to help, Imran's here to help as well, but the main thing is you can always research on your own. And I've pulled up on the website here for Georgia Tech specifically, every college has their resources dedicated to help specifically for international students also. And they go through the whole process with you. They explain exactly what Sabrine mentioned right now. And you can go through and see, okay, what exactly do I need in order to apply for this college? Like Sabrine mentioned, it can take up to a year. So you want to prepare as much as you can. And to give you an example here, when students are graduating from high school, let's say they're graduating from high school in May 2025. Right now, they are applying to college because they have to start almost 10 to 12 months before. So they start applying for colleges here around August, September, and they go through applying until January of next year. And that is for your admission into the fall 2025 semester. So it takes time. There are even the students here, they have to go through testing, they have to go through the applications, they have to wait for all their credentials to be approved before they get the admission. And also you have to keep in mind, you may or may not be able to get into every college you apply to. So you want to have many backups also, okay? And again, this is one school that I'm sharing here, but any school you're interested in, if you type in their name and you type in admission requirements, you'll be able to get to specifically that school's website. Okay. And of course, after the requirements are fulfilled, we talked about financial planning too. We understand that college is not cheap. It is very, very expensive, especially now. And if you are traveling from a different country, it is even more expensive. I think all of us understand that. We speak with many students who come here as well about this specific topic. And we're not going to go into too many details right now. We'll talk about it in a few slides as well, to give you some ideas on how you can prepare. But some waivers are possible. Some schools also, they do provide waivers for international students. And again, after we do this, the main thing is waiting. Once you're done applying, you do have to wait for a few months before you get any sort of communication back from the school telling you that you got into the school or you may not have gotten into the school. Same with scholarship and financial information. We'll talk about that in a few slides as well.
Danish, can you just tell them that how much is the wait time? Like if they're applying in January and
Yes.
February for the fall admission, when can they expect a
Right.
result?
So usually it takes about 3 to 4 months to hear back from colleges. Now, this is usually here back in the US. If you're applying early, then you probably hear back by the end of the year. So if you're applying in the fall semester, let's say August, September, and if you apply early, you usually know if you got into that school by the end of the year, so December. Majority of schools that you're applying to, and you might apply normal application, not an early application, you will find that out next year. So let's say you're applying right now, you will find out if you got admitted into that school probably around February or March of next year. From there, they work with you to figure out the financial aid part too, but it takes about 3 to 5 months depending on if you do an early application or you do the normal application. Okay. Again, we talked a little bit more about this, about researching and shortlisting the universities. This slide is mainly to tell you, what do you want to consider? When you're looking into universities, what should I consider before I apply? Of course, the program. Am I interested in this program? Do I want to study this? I know Imran's mentioned that there are career webinars that, for nursing, for other fields as well. We understand right now you may not know what you want to do, and that's perfectly fine. I don't think I knew what I wanted to do until I got into college. And even then, that's completely changed now, about 8 years later. So it's okay if you're not sure what you might want to do, but having an idea of what you're interested in is very helpful. So you can study and you can research the different programs. Location, if you are coming to the US, where do you want to live? Maybe you have some family here, you want to be near them. Maybe you want to live by yourself, or maybe you'll come here first, maybe family will come later. We have many resources here to help you with that in terms of finding, which university is best for you based on where you want to live. So think about the location. The university also, is it in the city? Is it in a downtown area? Or is it more in the rural areas where, you don't have much city, you don't have, it's quieter, small universities or big universities? There are many considerations here with location too. For international opportunities, obviously, some schools are better for international students because they might offer more, they might have more opportunities for you, but every university that's pretty much in the top 50, top 100, they have really good programs for international students. For campus culture, this is more so how you want to be around in the campus. So when we talk about the campus, we talk about living at the university, the students there at the university. For example, I've brought up Georgia Tech here because one, it's a really, really good school, but two, we have a lot of international students and they're from everywhere. It's not just our India-Pakistan community. We have all the Asian countries, European countries, South American countries, pretty much all over the world, they come here to study, and we have a lot of international students. So is that something you're looking for? Do you want to be with other students, not just, those who are in the US? Like I said, location, big or small campus, are you close to a Jamaat Khana? These are different factors that you can consider when you want to look into applying.
Danish, can
So
I
now for,
say
yeah.
one more? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but if you can go to the last slide, I just want to say that based on my personal experience, when you are choosing a program or when you're choosing a university, location is very important for international students, especially because you are coming alone, especially you are coming from a developing country to a developed country. Adjustment will be a big thing. Like पढ़ाई तो एक जगह पे है, लेकिन रहना is an entirely different thing. So you might want to consider the location where you have community around. Then it will be easier for you to connect, easier for you to get resources. So do consider location and international opportunities. Like you definitely don't want to live in a city which is too far away and you don't have anyone to help you. Because अगर वहाँ पे international opportunities किसी को भी नहीं पता कि international students को कैसे deal करना है या फिर उनके क्या challenges होते हैं, you have to consider this thing. So when you are making your list of universities, okay, I want to apply to this, I want to apply to this, do consider location as one of the factor when you are selecting, and then make a list that this is my priority one, this is my priority two, and this is my priority three, based on where I have people who I can connect with, where we have like our Desi community, where it is easier for you to gel in and live. That's all.
Yep, thank you for that, Sabrina. And like she mentioned, even through, if a factor is I want to be close to Jamaat Khana, so we have community, right? A lot of our students even here, they want to live closer, either to home or maybe to a Jamaat Khana, so they can have that community already there for them to help them also. So like Sabrina mentioned, it's very, very important to consider that location piece. Now, when we talk about applications, there are a few different types. Now, a lot of universities in the US, they take the common application. And there's just a quick, description about that here as well. Every time you are doing an application for a college, there is a small fee, depending on what college it is. It might be, it's not too expensive, but it is still money that you have to be prepared to pay to submit your application for every college. So the common application, if you do it once, you can submit it to multiple universities. And there might be some fees associated with that, but you have to complete this once, and then it can be sent to as many universities that take the common application. The coalition app and the state school specific apps, these are a little bit more specific. Again, there are resources to go into detail as to which universities these fall under. For state specific as well, there might be additional applications you have to do. So the university has an overall application, but they might have smaller applications as well. And then when we talk about what you need to provide, we've talked about the grading, the transcript, testing scores, any sort of awards you've gotten. And when you're doing the applications also, you will be asked to write essays. Sometimes this is very difficult for many, many students. So definitely practice, again, almost every application will ask you to write an essay to talk about a topic. There might be some topics you can choose from, and then you have to write about that. And they give you, some restrictions also. It can only be these many words, or it has to be about this specific topic. And then also letters of recommendation as well. Those always help you. Letters of recommendation are usually needed more for master's and PhD programs before undergrad programs. But there are some undergrad programs that will also require to submit those too. And of course, there are also some universities that do require an interview. Not all of them do this. There are very, very few who require you to do an interview for an undergrad degree. Master's and PhD, there's usually more universities that ask you to interview. Simon, you want to add anything here?
No, I think that's all you covered. I mean, it mainly depends on what kind of program you're applying, and also like if you're applying for an undergrad degree, whether you're applying for a grad degree, both has different requirements and both will have different type of application process. So reiterating again, please read the website very, very clearly. Just do not listen to people. You might have to read once, twice, or three times and be sure that you have read and understood everything that they need from you. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So standardized testing. Sabrina mentioned earlier about the English proficiency testing. Now, these are tests that almost every university does ask for. There was a change before our, COVID times, our lockdown times. Every university asked for either an SAT or ACT score. Now, some universities have moved away from it, but now some of them are bringing them back also. It could be public or private university and any across the US, but they do ask for this testing score as well. And these are two different types of tests, okay? There are some quick thoughts about them. Both of them have their own website. You can go on the SAT website, you can go on the ACT website. They have practice questions for you to go through as well, and they tell you exactly what the test is about. Now, SAT overall, majority of students end up taking the SAT once or twice, sometimes three times. ACT, again, once or twice, but SAT is a little bit more abstract, conceptual, whereas ACT is a little bit more specific on things you have learned. And they also have a science portion on the ACT that SAT does not have. Again, these tests are about 2+ hours long each. So, you want to practice. There are, like I said, there are many free resources also. If you want to go through Khan Academy, if you want to go through SAT, ACT websites, you can practice a lot of these before you actually take the exam. I think one thing maybe to note, Sabrina, I'm not sure if you know this or Imran, but are there locations in Pakistan that you can go and take ACT in person? I know SAT is online.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have, of course, IELTS is there, but not ACT, no. But of course, with the university, with the A-level students, we can always give a SAT or a GMAT.
Okay, got it. One thing I want to note here, SAT, ACT is for undergrad. Okay, so only bachelor's degree. When we talk about your master's program, you have the GRE, which will have, I think the next slide is actually GRE. Yes, GRE breakdown. GMAT, that's for your MBA schools. GRE is for majority of your grad programs. If you want to go into any master's program, the GRE is more of a general test that can be applied to many master's programs. GRE, like again, it has a breakdown here of what you can expect on the test. So if we have anyone here who's interested in going into a master's program, this is something you will have to take. For SAT, ACT, again, that's only for your undergrad bachelor's degree. You do not have to take that if you're trying to go into a master's program. Sorry, anything you
Danish,
want
I
to add?
want to say,
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to say that we do have SAT and ACT testing centers in Pakistan. Um, But I mean, I would say that unlike US, there are some tests that we can take at our home, like if we choose a virtual option. However, in Pakistan, we do not have this kind of opportunity. You have to go into a testing center to give these tests. So both are available, especially for GRE. If you're taking GRE, it depends on like what is your program and what your program needs, because like I think GRE also have some different options. Like you want to go for quantitative, qualitative, so you want to see that which one is your focus and what you want to give your specific test in.
Yep. So
So go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Like we
No,
mentioned earlier too, when it comes to timelines also, right? If we are taking these exams, we need to study for them. If we're preparing, we need a few more months to study. Take the exam, get your score back, then do the application. Now, depending on some schools, you can still apply for some schools for undergrad programs and mention that I have taken my SAT or ACT and the score is on the way, right? You can still apply to some programs that way, and you can let them know that, okay, I've already taken the exam. Once I get the score, I will send it to you. GRE, you have to get that score most likely ready in your hand before you can apply. There might be some programs that it's okay, but majority programs will ask you for that score as well. Similarly, you can take the GRE many times as well. It's usually recommended to take it twice. If you need to, 3 times as well. And the score, I believe, for GRE stays active for about 5 years after you take it. So if you take it, let's say right now, it can stay active for the next 5 years. All right. Now, I'm sure this is the topic that many of us are probably here for to understand. This is great. You're telling me that, it's great to come to the US for my college education. Maybe some of you are already considering it, but how do I pay for it? It is expensive. How do I move? How do I go through that process if I'm interested in doing this? And I will give this to Sabrina in a few seconds here as well, because she has been through this to some degree. But when we talk about the considerations for a college, the financial piece is a very, very large portion of it. Maybe you have your own savings. Maybe you've talked to your parents about, you want to come here and can we figure this part out? Are there some scholarships available that, you can take from Pakistan? You can bring them here. Are there other resources you have that you can actually take and provide, or sorry, use for a college education? And part of this is going through the process of searching, finding how much everything costs, and then working backwards from there. The estimated cost of attendance is different for every school. And again, I'll show you in a second here for Georgia Tech what that looks like before I start going to give it to you. But every school has slightly different cost of attendance. If you're going into a public school, it's probably going to be cheaper than your private school. If you're going into a community college, that is probably going to be the cheapest option, right? But there are many, many things to consider before picking a community college, a 4-year public university, or a 4-year private university. Again, going back to the program, what do you want to do? And think of this as an investment. Sometimes we think about it that I have to put all this money in now, and what's going to happen? Do I have enough money to do this for 4 years? But sometimes we have to consider it as an investment into our own lives, that down the road, I'll be able to get into a proper career track. Maybe I want to go into medical school. Maybe I want to go into law school. Maybe I want to go and start my own business at some point. So having that planning is very, very important. And again, sorry, before I give this to you, let me just quickly share the fees. So let me just do one sec.
You may want to zoom in a little bit on this, Danish.
Yes, I can. Okay. So if I look at undergraduate cost, right? Again, this is for Georgia Tech. It will tell you for first-year student, what does your cost exactly look like? So like I said, every college has their own website. You can go in and check this yourself. And this is in dollars, okay? So you can do the conversion if you need to. And it tells you specifically for if you live in that state, if you're out of state, and if you're out of country. And it breaks everything down for you. How much tuition costs? What are the fees, the books, the housing, the food plan, all these different expenses that do add up for every college. So for example, if I was living in Georgia for, over a year and I went to Georgia Tech, it would be around $30,000 for my 1 year. If I was out of state and I was coming here to Georgia Tech, it would be about 50,000. And if I'm out of country, it's very, very similar. Okay. Now, we don't want to scare anybody here when it comes to the numbers because we understand it is expensive. I've been through college here. I had to pay it. I didn't get all scholarships or funding. Sabrine's here. I know she also has to pay for it and she's not fully funded. And we know it's expensive, but it's good to know before you start the application process and see, okay, is this a school, one, do I want to pay for? Does it fit what I want to do? And also, what opportunities do they have to give me scholarships if they have any for me as an international student? Okay. And again, there are some colleges that are better with offering more funding to international students, and there are some that are maybe not as good. So again, researching that, looking at the programs and seeing if they can provide scholarships. Those can be based on merit, good grades, good testing scores, or they can be based on need. Maybe, sometimes we don't have just merit-based scholarships. The need-based scholarships also are very helpful, but those are specific to the college and they work with you a little bit more one-on-one at that point. So, Sabrine, I'll give it to you then.
Yeah, I just now realized, are people okay with me speaking English, or are you guys more comfortable in Urdu and I can do both?
I mean, generally speaking, bilingual is always preferred, but
Okay.
I mean, of course, it also depends on your fluency.
Okay, that's fine. So Danish, I think I quickly want to show replace the current. Okay, I quickly want to show a slide. So when you're applying for the university, as Danish said, it is expensive, but that doesn't mean that this is the end of the world and the US to hum kabhi bhi nahi aa sakte. No, this is not the case. So like I am a student of University of Oregon, and let's say if you're going to a university website, you'll go to admission and financial aid. Every university will have a different form, but kuch is tarike ka hoga. And let's say that you want to begin your application. So they will tell you, transfer students means कि आप एक university से दूसरी university में apply कर रहे हो. So there are many cases I've seen, and a lot of students do that. You get admission, you come in, you study in one university, but you say, no, this is getting very expensive, or there are XYZ reason, and you want to transfer. There are options for you to transfer as well. A freshman means that you are just starting, like for your first year undergrad program, या bachelor's आप start करना चाह रहे हैं. So we're going to look at the international students. So we'll go to international students. This will give you the breakup. So mostly universities क्या करती है, वो आपको बोलती है कि आप एडमिशन के टाइम पे ही स्कॉलरशिप के लिए अप्लाई कर दें. तो होगा ये कि जब आपको एडमिशन का ऑफर लेटर आएगा, उसी के साथ ही आपको स्कॉलरशिप के बारे में भी पता चल जाएगा कि हम आपको 5% दे रहे हैं, 10%. यूजुअली यही होता है. विद योर एडमिशन लेटर you will know whether the university is giving you scholarship or not. So one of the financial aid consideration is getting a scholarship directly from the university. It depends कि आपको कितनी दे रहे हैं. So you will submit your application fee, you will show English proficiency और जो भी हमने official documents की बात की वो. Then it is telling you cost and scholarship. तो पहले we're going to look at the cost. So it will tell you कि कितनी cost है. Tuition, अगर आप 12 credits लेते हैं, as an international student, you have to have a minimum of 9 credit in order to be eligible for an F1 visa. अगर आप 9 क्रेडिट से कम क्रेडिट्स लेंगे तो आपका वीजा लैप्स हो जाएगा. अगर आप पीएचडी स्टूडेंट हैं या आप नॉर्मली पीएचडी स्टूडेंट में, क्योंकि आप अपने थीसिस या डिसर्टेशन पे काम करें, देन देयर आर ऑप्शन फॉर अ रिड्यूस केस लोड. आप अपना रिड्यूस केस लोड का फॉर्म अप्रूव कराएंगे, देन यू आर एलिजिबल टू टेक 3 क्रेडिट्स, बट जनरली अ मिनिमम ऑफ 9 क्रेडिट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. सो यहाँ पे थोड़ा बहुत लिखा हुआ है आपके एजुकेशनल एक्सपेंस क्या है. हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. You cannot study in a university without a health insurance, but there are several ways. कभी कभार यूनिवर्सिटी खुद ही आपको हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस दे दिए. कुछ universities are flexible enough. They are okay, you don't take health insurance from us, you can take health insurance from any other third party. But generally, I would say 85% of the universities in the US, if you are an international student, they will ask you to get health insurance. ठीक है, on campus residence, if you are an undergrad student, अगर आप bachelor's कर रहे हैं, you have to have your first year in the university. Like you will live in the residence hall. That is a requirement. Unless, I don't know if your family, like I think Danish was living in Georgia, he was living in Atlanta. So I don't know if he had an option, but generally what I know for a fact is that your first year of undergrad degree, you have to live on campus, and from second year, you can move out. Now, when you're living on campus, one thing that you have to consider, like अगर आप international student आ रहे हैं, already इतनी ज़्यादा fee है, आपने सारी fee pay कर दी, during breaks, that residence hall close. तो you have to find a way कि आप उन छुट्टियों में कहाँ रहने जा सकते हैं. Do you have cousins around? Do you have family around? Do you want to go back to your country? You definitely don't want to pay 2,000 या 25,000, $2,500 to go back to Pakistan सिर्फ इसीलिए कि आप वो 10-15 दिन वहाँ पे रह ले. So you have to consider these factors. That is why I said the location is very important. So this is one way to look at it. Now, some universities will tell you, as I said, कि वो आपको खुद ही, जैसे अगर आप पहली दफा अप्लाई कर रहे हैं तो वो आपको शुरू में ही बता देंगे कि आप इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज या इंडियन स्कॉलरशिप्स के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते हैं, एंड दैट टाइम दे विल टेल यू कि क्या क्या है. We will talk about work study and other opportunities, but this is how a general financial planning look like, that you have to look at your living expense, your housing expense, your tuition expense, and your health insurance. Danish, do you want to share this?
Just to put things in perspective, Sabreen, and obviously for Pakistani students, because of the economic conditions and because of the dollar rates, I think the consideration has to be given here. If I were to ask you, and just to put things in perspective, and not discouraging anyone, but as compared to Canada, how expensive is university education in the US? Because Canada is next door, and I'm sure because when we had the webinar for the Canadian universities, also we had the same question, and I know many people will be thinking on these lines. So what is the difference percentage-wise, if you know about it? Second is, and what they say in the market is that, in Canada, you get a higher percentage of scholarship, and in US, you get a very lower percentage. So what is the, expected scholarship if it's a all A plus grade student with a great profile and a great application? What would be the highest scholarship rate, and what's the difference between Canada and the US?
So I can answer about the scholarship. Honestly, I don't know about Canada. If Danish can answer, you can get 100% scholarship, and I want to correct Danish. Danish, I am on 100% scholarship. So there is a chance of getting 100% scholarship. Now there are ways. Sometimes sometimes you can get a 50% scholarship from the university, and then you can get a 50% scholarship from an XYZ agency. So there are options like that too. There are options that you get a 70% scholarship from the university, and the 30% you are doing work at the university, which is called work study. Or there are other options that I will talk about just to fund your education, but there are ways. But एक जगह से भी आपको 100% मिल सकती है. There is a high probability and chances, but definitely merit is one thing. Like if there are 100 students applying, they will definitely pick probably 3 or 4. Also, the other thing that they consider is, that is why we said that when you are choosing the university, look at how supportive the university is for international students. Let's say if you're going to a university that is supportive of international student, they will prioritize you for the scholarship than on someone who is a US citizen. तो ये काफी दफा होता है. Like my university, that is a norm. They have to give a scholarship to international students because this is their mission. They want to do that. So you have to look at कि आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी में कितना ज़्यादा सपोर्ट है फॉर द इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स, कितनी कमेटीज हैं, वो क्या क्या करती हैं. थोड़ा सा आप उनकी सक्सेस स्टोरीज भी पढ़िए, आपको उससे काफ़ी पता चलेगा कि वो क्या क्या कर सकते हैं. For the cost for Canada and the US, Danish, do you have an answer to that?
There's no, again, there's not a hard response to that because it depends again on the college, right? There are going to be some colleges that will be less expensive than the US. There'll be some that will be more expensive, right? It always comes down to the overall cost of attendance. For example, if I want to go to a community college in the US, and if I'm comparing that to a four-year school in Canada, the community college in the US will be cheaper, right? But so you have to compare that apple to apple, the same exact comparison, right? So you look at the program, you look at, overall cost of attendance. So there's no hard line that says it's cheaper in Canada or cheaper in the US. Also, like Sabrina mentioned, there might be a Canadian university you get more scholarships for because they're more open to international students, right? And if that's the right school for you, it's going to be, easier for you to go there and, it'll be more funded for you. So it depends on a lot of different things.
Okay. Imran, are we okay to move forward?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. In addition to your expenses, like आपका, oh my God, I'm sorry. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, I cannot see my screen. I need a minute. Uh, uh-oh. Yeah.
Do you want me to share?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think I'm fine.
Okay.
So, in addition to looking at what is your tuition fee, what are your other expenses, you also have to consider transportation. Transportation in a sense that there are cities where public transportation is easily available. And if you are a university student, some universities will give you free access to the public transportation. So you don't have to pay. All you have to do is get an app and you can go wherever you want in the city. But there are some cities where there is no public, or public transportation is a challenge, like bigger cities. I would talk about Atlanta. I don't think I see a lot of buses around. So you have to get a car. Danish, am I right? So you have to get a car because it is difficult to get from one area to other. So you have to consider that as well. You also have to consider your cell phone. Definitely you need a phone. You have to take on that. Groceries and food. One of the biggest challenge that we international students get is food. There is no food like Pakistani food anywhere in the world. तो देसी खाने महंगे हैं, to be very honest. So either you get to use to it of American food or you cook at home or anywhere, but groceries is general grocery is expensive. Like desi grocery is expensive unless you want to go to Walmart and get other kind of stuff. Entertainment, another difference that I've gotten from Pakistan and America is the work-life balance. In order to get the work-life balance, like people will not work after 6 p.m. or 7. Maximum they will work at 7 p.m. They generally do not work. So people do go for entertainment. Weekends are generally, they do not want to study. They do not want to work. So that time, definitely you would also want to go out for entertainment, watch movies or somewhere. That kind of fund is also needed. Emergency funds, kuch bhi ho sakta hai. You gotta get that, and also clothing. ये सारा budget करना is important. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is when you're applying for scholarships, some scholarships will ask you, give us the breakdown कि आपका monthly कितना expense होगा. Then उस breakdown पे you have to add these stuff. You have to add the groceries, you have to add the cell phone, you have to add the clothing, everything, so that they know, okay, इस बच्चे को इतनी funding चाहिए. They might give you full, they might not give you full, but you have to consider these expenses. Okay. Danish, am I continuing this, right? For the housing?
Yep. Yeah, I'll add in when I need to.
Yeah. Okay. So for the housing, as I said earlier, that as a first year undergrad student, you have to live in dorms or you have to live on campus. But as you move off campus, there are several other areas that you can look for. There are off-campus university housing. ऑफ कैंपस है लेकिन यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से ही हाउसिंग है, दैट वुड बी चीपर. सो दैट कुड बी अपार्टमेंट्स और दैट कुड बी होम स्टेज. होम स्टेज क्या होते हैं कि जब आप दूसरी कंट्री से यहाँ पर आते हैं, सो देर आर सम फैमिलीज who offer you to stay with them for a week or two until you figure that out. So how will you find that? The university will give you an option. I don't know how other university, but generally universities do ask you to sign up that do you want a homestay. That's one way. Sometimes homestays can be for longer. The PGs, paying guests. You can also live as PGs with other families जिनके पास एक room है and you can live on rent. Also, when you are considering living in apartments, you have to consider for the furniture that whether the apartment is fully furnished or if it's not furnished. That's one thing. The other, definitely, if it's furnished, it will cost you more. If it's not furnished, you have to look at it. Living essentials, as I said, that अगर आप ऑफ कैंपस रह, जैसे ऑन कैंपस अगर आप डॉम वगैरह में रह रहे हैं तो वहां पे खाने के ऑप्शंस एट कैंप ऑन कैंपस होंगे. वहां पे डाइनिंग एरियाज होंगे, डाइनिंग रूम्स होंगे, तो आपको ज्यादा मूव नहीं करना पड़ेगा. आप डॉम से निकलेंगे, खाना खाएंगे, दोबारा डॉम में चले जाएंगे. पर अगर आप ऑफ कैंपस रह रहे हैं, किसी अपार्टमेंट में रह रहे हैं या कहीं भी रह रहे हैं या पीजी में रह रहे हैं, व्हाटएवर, यू ऑल्सो हैव टू कंसिडर कि आप जाएंगे, आप ग्रोसरी करेंगे, आप घर पे आएंगे, आप खाना बनाएंगे. जब आप ये सारी चीजें कर रहे हैं तो डेफिनेटली आपके यूटिलिटी चार्जेस जाएंगे, आपके ट्रांसपोर्टेशन चार्जेस जाएंगे. आपको ये सारी चीजें जो है वो ध्यान में रखना है. फिर अगर आप फर्नीचर या सप्लाई, सो व्हाट यू नीड, यू एटलीस्ट नीड अ मैट्रेस. अगर बेड नहीं तो स्टार्टिंग में यू नीड अ मैट्रेस, you need a chair, you need a table, but nahi mein nahi, but you need a mattress, at least a quilt or a blanket or a pillow to start, at least start with that. So these are some of the things. That is why we said that location is important. If you're living around community, getting a housing is easier because you have people, they can help you, they can support you. You have other students जो कि रह रहे हैं और आप उनके साथ रेंट कर दें. लाइक यू आर 3 स्टूडेंट्स, यू रेंट वन अपार्टमेंट और आप उसके साथ जो है वो एक रूम रेंट कर लें. इम्पोर्टेंट यहाँ पे एक और चीज भी है, अगर आप ऑफ कैंपस रहते हैं और लेट्स से कि आप खुद रेंट करना चाहते हैं, you have to have a social security. We're going to talk about that. As an international student, you cannot rent until and unless you have a credit score or you have a social security. But these are the things that can be taken care of by the. Matlab, there are ways, and that is step 3. Once you get admission, once you get visa, then you can think about that. But you have to consider that you have to have a housing plan in place before you get on a plane. आप लैंड करके जाएंगे कहाँ, कहाँ रहेंगे, you have to consider that. That's it. Okay. Now when we talk about funding opportunities, so as I said, there are several ways to fund your education. One is grants and scholarships. The second is on-campus employment opportunities, off-campus employment opportunities, internships, and co-ops. So I'm going to walk you through one by one. For the grants, and scholarships, there are एक तो मैंने आपको कहा कि आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी ही आपको स्कॉलरशिप दे देगी. Now a lot of students who come and who ask के स्कॉलरशिप मिलेगी या नहीं मिलेगी. Step number 1 is to get admission. Now university scholarship will go hand in hand with the admission. ये याद रखिएगा, जैसे मैंने अभी आप लोगों को बताया, university scholarship will go hand in hand with the scholarship. The other scholarships, which are non-profit scholarship, like Gates Scholarship, Coca-Cola Scholarship, Ron Brown Scholarship, APA, there are so many scholarships. There is a world of scholarships. All you have to do is look for the right scholarship. But they would need an offer letter. वो पूछेंगे आपसे कि भाई आपका admission letter कहाँ है, आपका offer letter कहाँ है. So you have to have an admission in place. Step number 1. Once you have the admission in place, then you can apply for the scholarship. You cannot directly go कि भाई मुझे scholarship दे दो. बोले किस चीज की scholarship दे, कितने पैसे चाहिए, कहाँ पढ़ने जा रहे हो, क्यों पढ़ने जा रहे हो, क्या करोगे वापस आकर, ये सारी चीजें आपको पहले से पता होनी चाहिए. If you are doing computer science, where are you doing computer science from? वहां पे आपकी हाउसिंग कितने की है, आपको कितनी फीस देनी है, बाकी क्या चाहिए. एडमिशन लेटर होगा तो स्कॉलरशिप के लिए अप्लाई करोगे ना, नहीं होगा तो कैसे अप्लाई करोगे. So that is one thing you have to look here. There are several scholarships. All you have to do is look. यहाँ पे कुछ हमारे पास जो है वो लिस्ट यहाँ पे है. You can easily read, but there are others too. I think there is a list जो कि मेरे ख्याल से every now and then WhatsApp पे चलती रहती है. You have to look. Honestly, I got one through of that. I mean, आपको देखना पड़ेगा. There is one scholarship that I got was IPA, International Peace Scholarship. That is only for women, और वो need based scholarship होती है. And they do help international students. But there are others as well. All you have to do is look. I cannot tell you कि आप इस स्कॉलरशिप के लिए अप्लाई करें, आप इस स्कॉलरशिप के लिए अप्लाई करें, बिकॉज सम स्कॉलरशिप्स आर वेरी प्रोग्राम बेस्ड. If you are in a STEM program, some scholarships are only for STEM. If you are in sciences program, some scholarships are only for that. So you have to look for that. And again, you also have to look the requirements for that scholarship. अगर आपको एडमिशन लेटर जो है वो 18 नवंबर को मिल रहा है और आपकी स्कॉलरशिप की डेडलाइन जो है वो अक्टूबर है, तो 1 महीने का गैप है, तो आप क्या करेंगे? सो यू कैन डेफिनेटली टेल द स्कॉलरशिप के भाई मुझे जो है वो 1 महीने में पता चल जाएगा, एंड देन आई कैन गिव यू फर्दर डिटेल्स. सो यू हैव टू, आई थिंक द बेस्ट वे टू डू इज मेक एन एक्सेल शीट और उस पर आप डेडलाइंस लिखें. And then just highlight them. Okay, I've checked this. I've checked this. ये मैंने कर लिया, मैंने IELTS दे दिया, मैंने ये दे दिया, मैंने apply कर लिया this. So you have to keep in mind this thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention here is that some universities can give you conditional letters, or some scholarships can give you conditional scholarships कि ठीक है हम आपको scholarship दे रहे हैं, जैसे ही आपका admission आ जाएगा आप हमें admission letter दे देना and they can confirm. So those are options too, but as Danish mentioned, and I'm saying it again, it's your own research. You have to do your own research in your own field, what you want to do and what are the ways that you can help. The grants that I'm saying,
Sorry,
yes,
just to interrupt you. We had a webinar a year back on Fulbright scholarship also, because we had a specific session on that to explain how to apply for it. We also have Aga Khan Foundation,
yes.
scholarships, and some of them are also of university, and those are announced in our Jamaat Khanas, by the way. So keep an eye on Jamaat Khana announcements as well. And if of course, this is the major question on scholarships, which many people will be asked. So we may arrange another webinar specifically on some aspects like essay writing or interviews, or especially applying on specific scholarships. So just be tuned for that. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you. No, thank you, Imran. I want to say that Fulbright scholarship will not ask you to apply for the program directly. Fulbright scholarship is a scholarship जो कि बोलेंगे कि आप हमारे साथ apply करें and we will get you into universities. So like जैसे आप universities shortlist कर रहे हैं, you should also shortlist the scholarships कि okay, for this scholarship, do I need admission first or do I not need admission first? So that is something to consider. But again, I would say that step number 1 is to look for universities if your goal is not Fulbright. Aga Khan Foundation, again, AKEB'P scholarship will ask you admission letter. So you need an admission letter to go for that. The second thing for here was grants. So grants में 2 options हो सकते हैं. पहला, आप किसी यूनिवर्सिटी में जा रहे हैं, आप जो प्रोग्राम में अप्लाई कर रहे हैं उस प्रोग्राम को ऑलरेडी ग्रांट मिली हुई है और वो उस ग्रांट से कुछ बच्चों को फंड कर सकते हैं. दैट इज वन ऑप्शन. बट अगेन अप्लाई करोगे तो पता चलेगा ये है या नहीं. सेकेंडली, समटाइम्स यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर ग्रांट्स योरसेल्फ कि ओके मैं ये स्टडी करना चाहता हूँ या मैं ये रिसर्च करना चाहता हूँ और उसके लिए मुझे ग्रांट चाहिए. The one thing about the grants that you have to make sure is that you have to have, I mean, we can have entirely a separate webinar on grants, but just a major thing is that in our grants are highly competitive. B, most of the grants जो कि US based होती है, they would need a US citizen to be the primary investigator, and you can be the co-investigator. तो वो तब मिलेगा जब आप मेरे ख्याल से प्रोग्राम में आ चुके होंगे, क्योंकि तब आपको यहाँ का थोड़ा आइडिया हो गया होगा. आई थिंक Please do not take it as an official statement, but I personally think that getting a grant from Pakistan is difficult rather than getting a grant by sitting in the US, because you are here, you know people, and even grants do need a little bit of connections to get you to that. So unless you are applying to a specific kind of grant जो कि पाकिस्तान की ही कोई कंपनी ऑफर कर रही है और वो आपको बोले कि ठीक है आप हमारे लिए ये काम करें और हम जो है आपको देंगे. The next was about the on-campus employment. Now, there are so many on-campus employments that you can apply to. The first is the teaching assistants. क्या आप कोई भी टीचर पढ़ा रहा है, उन्हें जो है वो टीए चाहिए. ये सारी यूनिवर्सिटी की वेबसाइट पे लिस्ट होती है कि कौन कौन सी टीए अपॉर्चुनिटीज अवेलेबल है. The other is called GE opportunities, which is called graduate employment. ये नॉर्मली जब आप यूनिवर्सिटी में एडमिशन ले, जैसे मैंने कहा कि अब आपका एडमिशन हो गया है एंड यू सी अ लॉट ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज ऑन द वेबसाइट क्योंकि दे नीड अ स्टूडेंट वर्कर, दे नीड समथिंग, सो यू कैन अप्लाई फॉर दैट इज वन वे. द सेकेंड इज रेजिडेंट असिस्टेंट. रेजिडेंट असिस्टेंट क्या होता है कि जैसे डॉर्म्स वगैरह है या फिर यूनिवर्सिटी हाउसिंग है, दे नीड अ स्टूडेंट टू सिट एट द डेस्क और टू मैनेज, या फिर जो भी उनका मैनेजर है आप उनको असिस्ट करें. रेजिडेंट असिस्टेंटशिप में इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द यूनिवर्सिटी कि आपको किस तरीके के पैसे देना है. कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज ये करती हैं, सॉरी, कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज ये करती हैं कि वो आपको कहती हैं कि आप रेजिडेंट असिस्टेंट हमारे साथ रहिए और हम आपकी हाउसिंग फ्री कर देंगे. कुछ वो कहते हैं कि नहीं आप हमारे साथ रहिए, हम आपको पे करेंगे आवरली. टीचिंग असिस्टेंट में भी ऐसा होता है. कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज कहेंगी कि आप हमारे साथ टीए रहिए, हम आपकी 50% स्कॉलर, हम आपको इसके बदले में 50% स्कॉलरशिप देंगे, या हम आपको इसके बदले में इतने पैसे दे देंगे. तो ये आपको देखना पड़ेगा. पहले आप इसके लिए अप्लाई करेंगे, जब आप फॉर्मल इंटरव्यू तक पहुंचते हैं तब आप उनसे पूछें कि मुझे किस तरीके का मिलेगा. एक और मैंने आपको ऑप्शन दिखाया था, वर्क स्टडी. वर्क स्टडी में ये होता है कि आप यूनिवर्सिटी में काम करेंगे, उसके बदले में वो आपको वहां पे पढ़ने देंगे इतने घंटे. आई थिंक देर आर, आई मीन यू हैव टू लुक एट द इंटेग्रिटीज की. अगर आप 20 घंटे काम करते हैं तो आप वीकली 20 आवर्स की क्लासेस ले सकते हैं, या फिर आप इतने क्रेडिट्स जो है वो ले सकते हैं. दैट यू हैव टू लुक फॉर. रिसर्च असिस्टेंटशिप, जिस तरीके से टीचिंग असिस्टेंटशिप होता है ऐसे रिसर्च असिस्टेंटशिप होता है. यहाँ पे ग्रांट्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करती है. जैसे कोई भी प्राइमरी एडवाइजर, कोई भी प्रोफेसर है, वो कोई भी रिसर्च पे काम कर रहा है, उनको ग्रांट मिली हुई है और उन्हें वो रिसर्च पे काम करने के लिए स्टूडेंट्स चाहिए. तो आप जब उनके साथ असिस्टेंटशिप करते हैं तो वो आपको पे करते हैं. तो आवरली जो है वो ये सारी चीजों की जरूरत होती है. नाउ आप अगर ऑन कैंपस काम करें या आप ऑफ कैंपस काम करें, यू हैव टू हैव अ सोशल सिक्योरिटी नंबर. ये बात कीजिए, लेकिन सो यू हैव टू हैव अ सोशल सिक्योरिटी. ठीक है, सोशल सिक्योरिटी के बारे में आई थिंक वी कैन टॉक अबाउट इट लेटर. बट जो इंपॉर्टेंट चीज एज ए स्टूडेंट आपको यहाँ पे ध्यान रखनी है वो है ऑफ कैंपस. ऑन कैंपस के लिए आपको वर्क ऑथराइजेशन नहीं चाहिए यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स की गवर्नमेंट से. पर अगर आप ऑफ कैंपस काम करते हैं तो आपको वर्क ऑथराइजेशन चाहिए होता है इन ऑर्डर फ्रॉम द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स. नाउ देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ campus employment. One is curricular practical training. The second is optional practical training. CPT या OPT आसान लफ्जों में ये जाना जाता है. CPT ये होता है कि ड्यूरिंग योर प्रोग्राम ऑफ स्टडी, जैसे आप जो है वो कंप्यूटर साइंस कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी ने कहा कि ठीक है, इन ऑर्डर टू गेन एक्सपीरियंस यू कैन वर्क ऑफ कैंपस. सो आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी आपके I-20 पे आपका वर्क जो है वो अप्रूव करेगी. जब वो आपका वर्क अप्रूव करेगी तभी आप जाके काम कर सकते हैं. उसके लिए अगेन आपको जिस भी कंपनी में आप काम करने जा रहे हैं उनका लेटर चाहिए, ऑफर लेटर चाहिए कि ठीक है हम जो है आपको हायर करना चाहते हैं, आप आ जाएं. नाउ देयर आर सेवर, मतलब 2-3 तरीके हैं इसको अप्रूव कराने के. आप सीपीटी इसीलिए कर रहे हैं क्योंकि जो आपके सीपीटी के घंटे हैं वो आपके क्रेडिट, जो आपके क्रेडिट आवर्स हैं उसमें काउंट होंगे, या तो फिर आपकी जो सीपीटी है वो आपको एक्सपीरियंस दे रही है और वो आपके लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, या तो जो आप सीपीटी कर रहे हैं वो आपके थीसिस में, आपके आपके मास्टर्स के थीसिस में या फिर आपके डिसर्टेशन में ज़रूरी है आपको डेटा कलेक्ट करना, इसीलिए आप काम कर रहे हैं. सीपीटी जो है वो आपकी यूनिवर्सिटी अप्रूव करती है, ठीक है। पार्ट टाइम भी हो सकता है, फुल टाइम भी हो सकता है, मोस्टली पेड होता है। मतलब कभी कभार अनपेड भी होता है, बट जनरली इट्स पेड। तो आपको पैसे मिलते हैं काम करने के, और आपको ऑफिशियली पैसे मिलते हैं, ठीक है। आपके अकाउंट में पैसे आएंगे, नोबडी इज गोना आस्क यू क्वेश्चन, क्योंकि बिकॉज यू हैव इट अप्रूव्ड। नाउ जो सेकंड है दैट इज ओपीटी। बिफोर आई मूव टू ओपीटी, लास्ट थिंग जो मैं मेंशन करना चाहती हूँ, सीपीटी अगर आप फुल टाइम सीपीटी करते हैं, लाइक पूरे 40 घंटे आप सीपीटी करते हैं, और आप 1 साल से ज्यादा सीपीटी करते हैं, तो आपके ओपीटी जो है वो अप्रूवल, आपके ओपीटी में से वो टाइम माइनस हो जाएगा। अगर आप पार्ट टाइम सीपीटी करते हैं तो आप जो है, आई डोंट थिंक अ पार्ट टाइम सीपीटी इज अ प्रॉब्लम, पर अगेन द यूनिवर्सिटी हैज टू अप्रूव. If your university doesn't approve, you cannot do CPT. You have to have a work authorization on your I-20. आपके I-20 पे लिखा होगा कि ये काम कर रहा है. ओपीटी इज ऑप्शनल प्रैक्टिकल ट्रेनिंग. जब आपकी डिग्री कंप्लीट हो जाती है तो आप जो है वो काम करना स्टार्ट करते हैं. कभी कभार आप अपनी ग्रेजुएशन से पहले काम करना स्टार्ट कर देते हैं, कभी कभार आप अपनी ग्रेजुएशन के बाद काम करना स्टार्ट करते हैं. ये वाला जो ऑप्शन है ओपीटी, ये द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स अप्रूव एंड दे गिव यू अ वर्क ऑथराइजेशन कार्ड, जिसे हम ईएडी कार्ड कहते हैं. आपको ईएडी कार्ड यूएस गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से आएगा, और तब आप काम करना स्टार्ट कर सकेंगे. इसमें यूनिवर्सिटी सिर्फ एप्लीकेशन देगी, यूनिवर्सिटी अप्रूव नहीं करेगी, ठीक है. नॉर्मली 1 साल का वर्क ऑथराइजेशन मिलता है, अनलेस स्टेम डिग्री है तो 3 साल का वर्क ऑथराइजेशन मिलता है. दैट्स इट. यहाँ पे अगर किसी को क्वेश्चंस है तो डेफिनेटली आई थिंक वी कैन गिव यू अदर ऑप्शंस टू आस्क क्वेश्चंस. The other full-time employment is internships. You can go for internships. As I said, internships either can be on campus or off campus. Same requirement. If you're going for off campus, you need a work authorization. You need a CPT. Co-ops are paid positions जो के to alternate semesters between full-time work. Co-ops ये है कि आपने एक सेमेस्टर का ब्रेक लिया और आपने जो है वो उसकी जगह पे काम किया, एंड दैट इज ऑल्सो अ पेड पोजीशन. मोस्टली स्टूडेंट्स ये करते हैं कि जो आपका समर ब्रेक होता है, कुछ डिग्रीज, अगेन आई सेड इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द यूनिवर्सिटी, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द प्रोग्राम. इफ दे आर अप्रूविंग यू, मोस्टली समर्स में आपके पास 3 महीने का ब्रेक होता है. यू कैन रिक्वेस्ट योर डिपार्टमेंट, यू कैन रिक्वेस्ट योर इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट डिपार्टमेंट, कैन वांट टू गेन एक्सपीरियंस, एंड दे वुड गिव यू. तो नॉर्मली क्योंकि समर्स में आपकी कोई स्टडी नहीं होती, तो आप 40 आवर्स जो है वो काम कर सकते हैं. 40 आवर्स से ज्यादा आप नहीं कर सकते. एक और चीज भी ये है कि आप, अगर आप क्लासेस ले रहे हैं और अगर आप काम करते हैं, दोनों मिला के भी 40 आवर्स से ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता, अदरवाइज यू कैन गेट इन ट्रबल फॉर दैट. ओके, Danish, do you want to add anything here before I move on to visa requirements?
No, no, I think you covered everything in detail. I think the one thing we can mention here again when it comes to employment is that going back, right, we've said many, many times that there's a lot to consider and sometimes you have to work backwards. We understand that not everybody here is going to know exactly their plan from 5 years from now, but as much as you know, as much as you can prepare for, it will always be very, very helpful for you. So when you're considering a program in a university and you want to go into that career, really consider, what do you have to do to get there? Also, when you're considering your school program, there are internship and co-op opportunities at that school. Again, some are better for you than others, and when it comes to the universities. So, Sabrina, you covered everything in detail, but just want to add that.
Okay, I'm still seeing a lot of questions. I think I can help. One main question that I'm getting is work visa. Okay, work visa is H-1B visa. I don't think this webinar is about that, but just to give you a line, a work visa is different than OPT. This OPT is not your work visa. You are still on a student visa, and the government of the United States is just asking you कि भाई आप student visa पे रहते हुए 1 साल काम कर ले. That's it. This is not an alternative of a work visa. Work visa is an entirely different thing. हम उस पर कभी बाद में बात कर सकते हैं, या you can reach out to whosoever can help you. I think I can help or whatever, but we'll find a way to answer those questions too. The next thing and the last, I think, in our entire presentation is visa and legal requirements. So there are several visas that you can apply. The very common people apply is F1 visa, which is a student visa. A J1 visa is, जैसे अगर आप फुल ब्राइट स्कॉलरशिप्स पे आते हैं, सो J1 वीजा इज जनरली टू गिव यू एक्सपीरियंस, या फिर आप जो है वो किसी प्रोजेक्ट के लिए आ रहे हैं, लाइक यू आर हियर फॉर 6, लाइक आप फुल ब्राइट पे आते हैं, सो इफ यू आर हियर फॉर 6 months दे विल गिव यू अ वीजा फॉर 6 months. इफ you are coming for PhD, some students opt for J1 visa. M1 visa is for specific programs, like आप 3 महीने का कोई कोर्स करने आ रहे हैं. That is for a course. Remember, J1 and F1 is for proper degrees. However, M1 is for short courses. You can consider M1 visa. But you have to read कि कौन से visa की क्या requirements है. Like mainly, I don't know if it's helpful to know, but F1, of course, I don't know how many of you are of my age or whatsoever. For your dependent, like if you have a kid or if you have a spouse, that's an F2 visa. And if you have a spouse, you have a kid, that's a J2 visa. So a dependent is J2 or F2. On F1 and F2 cannot work. They can only study just like you are studying. A J2 visa, you are a student, you are studying on J1. A J2, your dependent can work. So that is one thing to consider. I will just quickly go through the process के होता क्या है. जब आपको यूनिवर्सिटी से एडमिशन मिल गया, they are going to give you an I-20. That is an I-20 letter. उस I-20 लेटर पे लिखा होता है कि आप कौन सा प्रोग्राम पे जा रहे हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी का नाम क्या है, कितने साल का है, 4 साल का प्रोग्राम है, 5 साल का प्रोग्राम है, 2 साल का है, जितने भी साल का है, एंड कितने फंड्स रिक्वायर्ड, बस पे फंडिंग भी लिखी होती है. तो अगर आपको यूनिवर्सिटी ने स्कॉलरशिप दिया है तो उस पर लिखा होगा कि 50% scholarship by the university, 20% scholarship by the university. That is written on your I-20. Sometimes अगर आपको कोई स्कॉलरशिप यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ से नहीं मिला है, रिमेंबर इस पे सिर्फ यूनिवर्सिटी की स्कॉलरशिप के बारे में लिखा है और कोई नहीं लिखा है. अगर आपको कोई दूसरी XYZ स्कॉलरशिप मिली है, वो यहाँ पे नहीं लिखी होगी, सिर्फ यूनिवर्सिटी की स्कॉलरशिप लिखी होगी. The reason I'm mentioning that is that ये वीजा में पूछते हैं, वीजा इंटरव्यू में आपसे पूछेंगे कि आप बाकी के फंड्स कैसे कवर करेंगे, तो वहां पे लिखा होता है कि द फंड्स आर कवर्ड बाय फैमिली whosoever. तो ये सारी चीजें लिखी होती है, कितने पैसे हैं, कौन सा प्रोग्राम है, कितने साल का प्रोग्राम है, कब से कब तक है, ये सब, और आपके इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट का जो भी हेड है उसका नाम लिखा होता है. ठीक है. जब आपको I-20 आ जाता है, उसके ऊपर आपको एक नंबर मिलता है जिसपे लिखा होता है सीविस. आप जो है वो सीविस इज एक्चुअली योर आइडेंटिफिकेशन इन द यूएस. आप जो है वो सीविस की फी पे करते हैं. आप सीविस की फी पे किए एडमिशन वीजा इंटरव्यू के लिए नहीं जा सकते. ठीक है. आपको I-20 आया, मैं दोबारा से रिपीट कर रही हूँ, आपको I-20 आया, आपको सीविस नंबर मिला, आपने सीविस की फी भरी. ठीक है. आई थिंक इट्स 35,000 राइट नाउ, आई एम नॉट श्योर. और उस टाइम 35,000 था, बट इट्स प्रोबेबली बिटवीन 35 to 50,000 राइट नाउ. आपने सीविस की फी पे की, then you're gonna complete the DS-160 form, which is the non-immigrant visa application form. आपने DS-160 फॉर्म भरा. DS-160 फॉर्म में पूछेंगे कि आप क्या पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, आप क्या करते हैं, आपका बैकग्राउंड क्या है, आप करंटली क्या करते हैं, पैसे कौन पे करेगा, फैमिली में कौन है. इट्स अ डिटेल्ड फॉर्म. यू गोना फिल दैट फॉर्म. जब आप DS-160 पे कर दे फिल कर देंगे, आप उसको सबमिट करेंगे, तो आपको एक नंबर मिलेगा. उस नंबर से आप जो है अपना इंटरव्यू अपॉइंटमेंट का फॉर्म फिल करेंगे. DS-160 इज नॉट द इंटरव्यू अपॉइंटमेंट फॉर्म. You're going to fill the interview appointment form. We're going to fill the interview appointment form. It will give you a fee चालान. आप वो फी चालान लेंगे. आप वो फी चालान नॉर्मली $185 है, तो विच इज आई थिंक 51,000 PKR राइट नाउ. आप जब वो फी पे करेंगे, तब वो पोर्टल आपको ऑप्शन देगा कि ठीक है, अब आप अपॉइंटमेंट स्केड्यूल कर सकते हैं. जब तक आप ये पैसे पे नहीं करते, वो आपको अपॉइंटमेंट नहीं देगा. आपने पैसे पे कर दिए, अपॉइंटमेंट आ गया, फिर आप जाएंगे वीजा इंटरव्यू के लिए, और आप इंटरव्यू में अपेयर होंगे और आंसर करेंगे. हम वीजा इंटरव्यू कैसे देते हैं उसकी बहुत सारी वीडियोस हैं यूट्यूब पे, आप देख सकते हैं. आई डोंट थिंक दैट दिस वेबिनार इज अबाउट दैट, बट जस्ट टू गिव यू एन ओवरव्यू कि कैसा जो है वो प्रोसेस है वीजा का. प्लीज बी वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट. एंड एक सिर्फ चीज बोलना चाहती हूँ, इन माय पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस एंड अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु कम टू मी फॉर क्वेश्चंस, और जितने मैंने पाकिस्तानी स्टूडेंट्स को देखा है, One of the major reason for a visa to be rejected is because you are not applying to a good university. If you're applying to a community college, if you're applying to an XYZ university, which is not in 200 or 500, I think that does matter कि आप कौन सी यूनिवर्सिटी में जा रहे हैं. अगर मैं स्पीच थेरेपी के लिए अप्लाई कर रही हूँ स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी में, not a good option. Obviously, although Stanford is in top 100, लेकिन वो स्पीच थेरेपी की यूनिवर्सिटी है ही नहीं. Then, I mean, they do research. वो आपके बारे में 2 से 3 दिन आपके बैकग्राउंड पे रिसर्च करेंगे and then they're going to give you the visa result या जो भी है. So one of the reasons that it gets rejected is what university you are applying to and how much funds you have. So there are also options for a loan that you can apply. Danish, can you cover? I have someone on the door. Just 1 minute. Sorry.
Sure thing. So again, I know Sabri knows a little bit more about the legal requirements, but like she said, right, when it comes to loans and those type of things as well, they do background check. They do check, what universities you're applying to and what kind of programs you're going into, and even when it comes to legal stuff as well. So again, I know the main thing here is we didn't want to cover too much of the legal requirements because that'll be a longer conversation. But in the meantime, if there are I know there are some questions that have been coming in for, how the visas are different. I don't know, Imran, do we have resources for that?
Yeah, I see. I was going to tell the group. So, of course, this is a wide topic, right? And even on just the visa requirements or just the scholarships, we could have a whole webinar. So, in the interest of time, I'll just pose two broad level questions to you, and then we'll in the seminar, sorry, the webinar. And of course, we have the resources available with local education board, the regional board, and the national board. Of course, we have the email address where people can reach out to. And before the ending of the webinar, I will give the final guide and these slides to our students to download immediately so that they can, of course, they have the recording of it all on our YouTube channel, but it'll be nice to, share these slides also. So the two questions is one, when we're talking about the scholarships, do you have one or two scholarships in your mind which which are mainly applied by the Pakistani students and they're easy to navigate with?
Okay, so one scholarship that I can think about is, I said, IPS, which is International Peace Scholarship. That is merit based. You have to apply through a state. This is what I know. So that is one, not very difficult, but you have to have someone who you can connect to. That's one. I cannot think of
No, that's
there is
fine. I
one,
think, yeah.
there
So
is
I think
one more
Manish,
which
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's one more, but I cannot think of the name, but they actually give you a loan to study and then you can pay them back. But I just cannot think of the name on top of my head. If you can just give me a minute, I can Google and really tell you.
Sure. Okay, sure. Go ahead. And the second question was again on the visa requirements. Obviously, it's a bit complicated because when you speak to a individual counselor, it's different. University counselors are of course always available in our universities here as well, or colleges as well. But if you talk about the visa requirements, what is the basic student visa called? And a lot of people want to know they're going to get it after the admissions. I think the answer is yes. You can elaborate more on it. But what is that one name of the visa for students?
F1. F1
That's
is the student visa.
okay.
Unless you are doing a PhD, then it's a J visa.
Right. Excellent. So F1 is the main visa. And of course, in Pakistan, when now you are applying for a visa, there's a long queue, there's a long wait. A lot of people want to know that, of course, people are also applying for visit visas. But I think the portal of the US um, visa section is the same, where you just go, you choose a date and the time, which is generally after 1 year, right? To get even an interview
For
slot for the visa.
for visit visa?
Yes, visit visa is about 1 year.
Okay,
From
so I don't know what is, so when I applied, I think I got the interview within 2 weeks. Like I applied in June start and I got the visa
you talking
date
about are
for
you
June
talking
mid.
about the current year or the last year?
No, so it was 2021. I am hearing a lot of people say that it's 3 to 4 months wait time. So that is when we say that if you are getting an admission letter in March or April and your classes are starting in August, you should apply for the visa interview like the very next day as soon as you get the letter, because it's a 3 to 4 weeks, 3 to 4 months wait time. For the visit visa, I think it's a year and a half. Like if you apply 2024, I think you'll get an interview date 2026, I think.
Right, right. So I think for a visit visa, it's more than a year, and for a student visa, it's less. All right, excellent. I think on that note, let me just share two links. One is the final guide that you guys have already shared with me on the WhatsApp. So I will share with everyone, and anybody can. So just guide me if is that the correct file, Danish?
Yes, yeah, it
Or the
should be. If
final
you
guide.
do, yeah, if you share it, I can quickly talk about it for everybody here.
Great. So this is the final guide that I've shared here. Okay, upload it so everybody can download it. You can open it and you can explain, please. And meanwhile, I'll also share the link to this presentation which you shared.
Yeah, perfect. So that guide that Imran has shared, Sabri and myself, the team here, we've put this together to hopefully help you. And with the guide, Imran, there are a few videos that we also have in presentations. So if you are able to just download that and then send that all together, that would be really
Yes.
helpful. The purpose behind this is, we had this one webinar. We're very happy that all of y'all could join. We know this is very, just a one-time thing that we've done right now. The guide and the different presentations we have, hopefully they go into more detail. The guide is very thorough. It talks about a lot of the topics here. There are more resources we have in there. And the point is to hopefully it will help you with your research, right? Now, we know a guide is not for everybody. It's a long document, you don't want to read everything. So we also have bite-sized videos as well as the presentations to hopefully help you. So if you only need information about the visa stuff, we have that. If you only need information about figuring out which colleges to apply to, we have that separated out for you as well. And hopefully, that can help you in your research. I think the main point here, the takeaway is you have to do the research. Please start in advance, prepare because it will take some time. And of course, we have Imran and the local team there to help you guide and if there are any additional questions that the team there cannot answer for you, Imran will reach out to us as well so we can at least help you a little bit more. And again, I think coming back to this, right, is that the point is that if you are considering coming to the US for your college education, hopefully this was helpful for you. If this is not the right thing for you to do right now, that's fine as well, right? Consider the different things that you would like to do, what you want to be doing when it comes to going to school, going to a different career. And from there, consider if coming to the US is the right decision for you. So hopefully that's where we were able to help you a little bit here. And I know Imran and the team have great resources there locally to help you as well. I know, especially with the career webinars that can actually help guide you that which direction you might want to go. Because we get a lot of those questions here too. And I know those webinars should hopefully be helpful.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Danish and Sabrina. I think we have exceeded the expectations. We've exceeded the number of people we were expecting on the webinar. And I think we have been thorough with this presentation, taking more than 90 minutes. Thank you so much for your time, Danish and Sabrina. For all the participants, thank you very much for joining. I've also shared the link for our newsletter where we have about thousands of people who are already subscribed to the newsletter. This is our main mailing list where we'll be emailing all the bite-sized videos, all the talking points, all the other resources for the future. And of course, you can reach out to your local education boards, wherever your Jamaat Khana is. in all of Pakistan, in the northern areas or the southern areas, you have the local education boards to be reached. Thank you once again, everyone. Thank you, Sabreen. Thank you, Danish, for joining in. We'll be signing out now. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.